Italy, like Rome and Naples and elsewhere. We'll have representatives of NGOs, associations and foundations which promote policies about sustainable development, and of course we'll have more researchers and more people working in technology development. But first of all, to introduce the themes we are discussing today and to, let's say, provoke the discussion with a keynote speech, we welcome Paul Connett, a professor of environmental chemistry at St. Lawrence University in New York State, who is a famous advocate of the zero waste philosophy, and who will describe us with, I think, a lot of case studies how the goal of reducing waste, very close to zero, can be addressed. Mr. Connett, let's hear your talk, and then we will proceed with the discussion.
Thank you. To introduce myself, whoops, I don't know why that keeps doing that. To introduce myself, I'm a retired professor of chemistry. I got involved in waste in 1985 over an incinerator battle. That's when I changed from a pure scientist, from a biochemist, to an activist and applied chemist. I helped to form the group Work on Waste USA. Between 85 and 95, we helped citizens stop 300 incinerators from being built in the United States, and only one municipal waste incinerator has been built in the United States since 1997. This issue has now taken me to 63 different countries, over 2,500 presentations, mainly to community groups. Citizens want to hear me talk, governments usually don't. Most of this work is summarized in a book published in October 2013, The Zero Waste Solution. The foreword was kind of written by Jeremy Irons, a British film star who hosted this movie, Trashed, and that's why the subtitle of the book is called Untrashing the Planet, One Community at a Time. So the movie gives you the grim stuff, the book gives you, I hope, the solution. Different times demand different questions. In the 20th century, we talked about waste management, and the question we asked is, how do we get rid of our waste efficiently with minimum damage to public health and the environment? That seemed a very reasonable question at the time. In the 21st century, we're now talking about resource management, and the question is, how do we handle our discarded resources in ways which do not deprive future generations of some, if not all, of that material? So in the 20th century, the key issue was safety. In the 21st century, the key issue is sustainability. And a few words about sustainability. We would need 5 planets if everybody consumed like an American. We would need 2 if everybody consumed like a European. Meanwhile, India and China are copying our consumption habits, and I'm afraid with China, our burning habits as well. Something's got to change, and the best place to start that change is with waste, because everybody makes waste every day. With poor leadership, we're part of the problem. With good leadership, we can be part of the solution. And the solution is to move from a linear society to the circular economy. The linear economy, as I'm sure you know, is extraction, transport, production, transport, consumption, waste. So how do various ways of handling waste impact this linear society? We're starting with incineration. Every time you burn something, you have to go back to square one in this linear society. And so when we burn our discarded materials, we do not mitigate the global impacts of the linear society of extraction, manufacture, or transport at all. So essentially then, incineration is business as usual at a time when our planet simply cannot afford business as usual. Incinerators are euphemistically described as waste-to-energy facilities. In reality, there are huge waste of energy. If you look at the energy that's used in extraction, transport around the world, manufacture, and again transport, a huge amount of that energy is not recovered when you burn. You only get a fraction of the calorific value. All this energy is unavailable to you through incineration. However, it is available in next time round with these materials with recycling, reuse, and composting. Incineration is also a huge wasted opportunity to fight global warming. So with all this energy use, this carbon dioxide production, and then in turn feeds into global warming. Well, that's the bad news. Let's turn to the better news. When you recycle materials, you cut out the impacts, global impacts of extraction. If you reuse the whole product, then you cut out the impacts of both extraction and production. Similarly with composting, we reduce the need for synthetic fertilizer, and compost, as we heard a previous speaker talk about, also improves the structure of the soil, holds onto water, nutrients, and holds onto carbon. If you look at this compost here, you see bits of wood to cellulose. That, if you put it into an incinerator, would be immediately converted into carbon dioxide. But in the soil, it can be held on for weeks, months, even longer. But more than that, by stimulating more plant growth, the compost helps to fix more carbon in both the body and the roots of the plants. Now, there's a very interesting experiment that just took place in Marin County in California, where they spread compost, half an inch of compost, on grazing land. And within a few years, 2 or 3 years, the amount of carbon that was fixed in the plant roots was extraordinary, extraordinary. And what they think has happened is the compost has opened up the soil, the plant roots, the grass roots, go much, much deeper, and all that carbon is being fixed in those roots. We don't see it, but that could be very exciting. It could be the cheapest, quickest, and safest way of fighting global warming. The waste problem, in my view, is largely a social problem. It's not a technological problem. It's not going to be solved with magic machines, but with better organization, better education, and better industrial design. So zero waste requires a combination of community responsibility and industrial responsibility. It's the latter which has been lagging. All the emphasis has been on the community. So I'm going to give you 10 steps now to zero waste with examples from around the world. Step 1 is, of course, source separation. These 10 things are the magic machines. Mix everything together, you've got waste. Separate, and you've got resources. Step 2, door-to-door collection. Door-to-door collection is absolutely critical for composting. Composting, I agree with the previous speaker, is more important than recycling, although we tend to do recycling before we do compost. In San Francisco, the door-to-door collection looks like this: 3 containers, one for the recyclables, one for the compostables, one for the residuals, picked up once a week from businesses and housing. In Italy, they have a better, I think, more elegant system. Different materials are picked up by the same trucks on different days. One material per day, or sometimes you pick up, say, more organics than the rest. A very simple, elegant system. This has been copied in Spain, particularly in Basque Country. Same principle, same truck, different materials, different days. They've added a Spanish twist. Instead of putting your containers on the pavement, you put it on hooks. So each family has a hook. This is the brown container for the organic fraction. Each household has a number. That's the number on the hook, and that's the number on each container. If you don't have big walls, you can also erect these posts. Very elegant system. In Castelnuovo in Sicily, very steep, narrow roads, they've got a special collection system. It is the donkey. Now, this donkey is just loved by the citizens, the cittadini, and it's loved also by the tourists. This man is a recovering alcoholic. He missed many days from work. But when he took over this donkey, he hasn't missed a day since. This is a very important principle. Zero waste is not just about recovering materials. It's about recovering people. People need jobs and people need respect. This man is not done. In Brazil, we see this in much greater. Once upon a time in Brazil, you had 1 million people, men, women, and children, picking resources out of landfills. It was a useful job. They made money, but it was very dangerous, and it certainly wasn't good for the kids. But now, these catadores have been formed into cooperatives. They're working with the government. They have permission to go door to door and pick up these separated materials. Much cleaner. Whoops. There you see they're quite sophisticated electric parts, and so on. In step 3, composting is much more important than recycling. But to use compost in agriculture, the organics must be clean. That's why we need door-to-door collection. That's why porta collection systems in Italy came about, because of farmers' demand for more organic material in the soil. Here you see an example from Anani in Spain, where you see the quality of the organic collection is incredible, 99.76% pure. In San Francisco, they need clean organic, so they tell the restaurants to put out separate containers for organics, and it's 25% cheaper. So it's an economic incentive. And these restaurant workers are very, very good at this. Here, the organics have gone to the composting facility, which is surrounded by farmland. Farmers are using the compost to grow fruit and vegetables, which go back to San Francisco, and also to 200 vineyards. Step 4, recycling. In San Francisco, the recycling plant is on Pier 96, very big facility. Here you see the separation lines, and here you see the paid and protected workers. Now, a nice, interesting thing is, the company that has the contract to pick up these materials also owns the composting facility, also owns the recycling facility, does not own the landfill. They have no incentive to send anything to landfill. That's their competitor. The company is also owned by these workers. So these workers are earning a decent salary, and they're part of the profit system. Same thing in Brazil. These cooperatives not only collect the material, they separate the material, get it ready for market, and they're making money out of that as well. Step 5, reuse and repair centers, which I hope to become community centers to stimulate the growth of villages, regrowth of villages within the city. Reuse and repair centers. Now, reusable objects are only a small fraction of the total waste stream, about 2% in Los Angeles, but they're worth well over a third of the total value. So that's why reuse can create more jobs and more businesses than recycling. Urban Ore is an example of a reuse operation which has been going for a long time. You see the typical stuff that you can buy anything, absolutely anything. Building materials is a speciality, doors, toilet bowls, you name it. Been running for 30 years, grossing $3 million a year, 37 well-paid jobs. Over on the other side of the country in Burlington, Vermont, same kind of operation. You can see the high quality of the reusable objects that are being recovered, but they're doing more than that. They're taking people off the street and training them to repair large appliances, small appliances, electrical goods, computers. After 9 months, they give them a certificate and help them to get a job. There is a lot of state money to help train these people. In addition, another money maker is deconstruction, which is linked to this company. You take down old buildings in the reverse order they went up, you will recover a lot of materials which will be used again for building, but in this case, the wood can also be used to make furniture. Think of the value added of this old wood being made into furniture, lots of furniture. And again, more jobs. Jobs that are selling the reusables, job making these new products, and so on. Now you have a lot of fun with this. They don't have much fun in Sweden. It's a very cold place, not much light times of the year. But they do have fun in Gothenburg. Gothenburg, they've got a reuse park. It's very large, very spacious. When you go in, there's a band playing. When you walk around, you've got clowns to entertain the kids. When you go to the toilet, it's an art gallery. And my favorite is this dog. This is the famous separating dog. This dog can separate mixed recyclables into 6 different categories. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if a dog can do that in Sweden, surely some of our politicians in other countries can separate into 3. So there's the first 5 steps then: source separation, door-to-door, composting, recycling, reuse, and repair. The next steps, steps 6 through 9, are all attempts to minimize the residual fraction. So step 6 is economic incentives, and this is the one I particularly like. This is the pay-as-you-throw system. In this, there are variations, but in this system, the compostables are taken for free, the multi-materials, the recyclables are taken for free, but the residual fraction, the more you make, the more you pay. And this can be produce very large reductions. In Italy, they've gone from, in certain communities, from 70 to 80% diversion, just using this system alone. It's usually the last step to get as high a diversion as possible. Now, in step 7, more waste reduction initiatives. In Ireland, the government put a 15-cent tax on shopping bags, plastic shopping bags, and in 1 year, the use went down by 92%. So everybody's utter amazement. In Ontario, Canada, they've been reusing glass beer bottles for over 60 years. Now, these bottles go around 18 times. It's created 2,000 jobs in the collection and cleaning. It saves the company money, no cost to the municipality. So this is a zero waste operation, and it's been going on for 60 years. In October of last year, Governor Brown of California signed in, the first state to do so, signed in a ban of single-use plastic bags, complete ban. In Italy, we have some stores which allow you to refill your own bottle. This particular store has 60 different taps. You can refill detergents, shampoos, water, milk, honey, olive oil, and my favorite, vino. You can even sample each 8 different kinds and then fill your own bottle for 2 or 3 euros. Lovely. And in the schools, they're taking out all the plastic. We can do this in every institution. Take out the plastic and bring back stainless steel, ceramics and glass. In addition, they're using tap water instead of bottled water. You can do that in Italy, you can do it in some countries. You can't do it in America or Australia because we are stupid and put fluoride in the drinking water. But that's another story. And they have eco-binding. They have zero waste labels, where you have reusable diapers, not disposable diapers. So they're the first 7 steps, and let's see how far we can get with those first 7 steps. In San Francisco, population 850,000, very little space. They were diverting 50% by 2000. They pushed that up to 80% by 2011, and their goal is zero waste by 2020, or very close. In Italy, the 2 best places in the world for zero waste right now are California and Italy. In Italy, we have over 1,000 communities getting 70% diversion, raccolta differenziata. Over 300 communities getting over 80%, and some communities even over 90%. So 80% we've seen in large cities and in small towns, but going beyond 80% separation requires this next step, in my view. It's the most important step if we want to go beyond 80%. And this is the step where we bring on, or try to bring on, industrial responsibility. It's in 2 parts. The first part is a residual separation facility. They built these facilities in Nova Scotia, Canada. They're built in front of the landfill, and no waste can go directly into the landfill. It must go, the residual fraction must go through this facility. You see it built here. You see the road only goes to the facility, not to the landfill. Here's an aerial shot of the facility. The bottom building is where the separation goes on. There's a conveyor belt between the 2 buildings, and the second building is where the composting of the dirty organic fraction takes place. Then you see the curing pads for the compost, and you see the landfill in the background. So very quickly, the residuals come in these plastic bags. The bags are carefully opened, the contents go on conveyor belts, paid workers are pulled out more recyclables, more toxics. They don't touch the dirty organic fraction. That goes all the way to the end of the conveyor belt, where it is then shredded. The shredded material goes into troughs, and a machine turns this material, aerates it, shifts it towards the end of the tunnel. It's in there for a total of 18 days. Some citizens think that's not long enough, but then it goes, the object, of course, of this exercise is not to produce a compost to sell or even to use, but to stabilize it above ground so that it doesn't cause problems underground. So into the curing sheds, curing place, and then it can be used for landfill cover at the landfill. Now, into this we want part B. We want to put into this a zero waste research center where the research is focused on the non-recyclable fraction. We hope that we can involve professors and students of local universities to man such a research center. And this is where, it's their laboratory. If you're interested in sustainability, these are our mistakes. And this is where community responsibility and industrial responsibility come face to face. And the message from the community to industry has to be, if we can't reuse it, if we can't recycle it or compost it, then industry shouldn't be making it. We need better industrial design for the 21st century. Now, we're going to introduce the fourth R, the 3 R's that you're familiar with: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And don't forget the C of compost, which we often do. The fourth R is redesign. Redesign. And so we can put on one piece of paper, one slide, zero waste. Zero waste is a combination of community responsibility with the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycling, and compost, and industrial responsibility to redesign what we can't reuse, recycle, or compost. Now in Italy, in Capanari, which is near Lucca in Tuscany, they became the first community not only to declare zero waste, but also to build or start a zero waste research center. Very small operation, but they analyzed the residual fraction. That's the analysis of about the 17% left after the 83% diversion. And you'll see number 2 is panolini. Panolini is not a foodstuff, it is in fact a diaper. And so one of the things they've done in the area is to, a company is making reusable diapers, and the local pharmacies are giving away the first reusable diaper to new parents. Here you see one of the designers actually studying the residual fraction. And one of the things they kept finding in Capanari and elsewhere are these coffee capsules, these wretched coffee capsules. You get a splendid cup of coffee, but every splendid cup of coffee you drink, using these machines, you're left with one of these capsules, which is not recyclable. Now, Rossano Occolini, a school teacher, wrote to Lavazza and said, look, we love your coffee, we're a zero waste community, and we keep finding your coffee capsules in our residual fraction. What can we do about it? And to their amazement, the company phoned them up and said, let's get together. We'll get your experts and our experts to talk about this. And the end of the story is pretty exciting. There are now available recyclable capsules, reusable capsules, and biodegradable capsules. So three different solutions, not just from Lavazza, the competitors have got into this as well. So step 9 then is better industrial design. And step 10, you've already seen, is an interim landfill for the biologically stabilized dirty organic fraction and the currently non-recyclable material. And there are all the 10 steps together. See them all? Now, what I like about this is the first step involves everybody. Everybody has these 10 things. We can involve everybody in this first step towards zero waste, this first step towards sustainability. But by the time we get down to steps 8 and 9, we are challenging, drawing into this solution the brightest minds in our society if we do it well. Our professors, our students, and our best industrial designers. I come to Italy a lot. This is my 69th visit to Italy, because Italy has some of the best industrial designers in the world. We need them to design waste out of the system. Now, as far as the zero waste research is concerned, although I introduced it in step 8, I would like to see it located in 2 places. The first location would be in the reuse and repair center, which would be the ideal place to study bad designed products which keep breaking down. And if you go to one of these, you see a lot of recurring culprits, fans which break down and so on. So that would be an ideal place to study bad design products. And then the step 8, that's where you look at the packaging, the bad packaging, which is going to end up there. So we need our brightest minds involved to link the zero waste successes to other aspects of sustainability. Zero waste is not equal to sustainability, but it's a darn good first step. So now the job is to get these bright minds to link zero waste with sustainable agriculture. I think that's pretty obvious with composting. Sustainable architecture, which becomes very apparent when you are deconstructing buildings and when you're using building materials again. And sustainable energy, of course, the big message there is that incineration is not sustainable. Don't waste a single penny on building incinerators. Oh, I wish China would listen. This 10-step plan is better for the economy, more jobs, more social justice. It's better for our health, less toxics from landfills, less toxics from incinerators. It's better for our universities. It's offering them more meaning, more relevance. It's better for the planet. It is more sustainable, and it is better for our children because it offers them more hope. I don't know if you have thought about this. Every day we are telling our teenagers we're running out of oil, we're running out of many materials, we're destroying our rainforests, we're losing species, we are born with toxics in our blood. There seems to be no future. They're seeing this on television every night. I know when I grew up, I didn't watch television and I didn't have this constant message that there was no future for me. And somehow we have to turn that around. We have to give our children hope. I'm not suggesting that we give them false hope, but if we give them no hope at all, our future will continue to spiral downwards. And I stress again, the subtitle of my book is Untrashing the Planet, One Community at a Time. I'm rather pessimistic about changes from the top. I do not think our politicians are either bright enough or have a long enough time frame to make the right decisions. So I'm looking to the real changes at the grassroots level. So we have, on the one hand, global corporations that are devouring our planet as fast as they can. These are run by corporate looters. Corporate looters. So where do we look for a fight back on that? You have to go to our communities where people are concerned about their health, they're concerned about their children, they're concerned about their local community and their resources. This is where the real change can take place. And I do not expect zero waste around the planet overnight. What I do anticipate is that we will have model solutions, zero waste solutions, for every conceivable size community, from small villages of less than 1,000 to small towns, to small cities, to large cities, different demographies in different parts of the world. And so when we get the right political leadership and say, how can we do this, we can point them to communities that are already doing it. We already have those pioneers out there. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your comment. I think we have to rush a bit towards the rest